You listen carefully, because this moment is not accidental. You have been sensing for a long time that there was something unusual about your journey, something that set you apart from the rest. You have walked through seasons of betrayal, silence, and hidden battles that nobody else could see. Yet every time you were supposed to be crushed, you somehow stood back up. That is not luck. That is divine strategy. You were marked before you were born to carry a mission bigger than yourself, a mission not only spiritual but governmental, not only about prayer and faith, but about nations, systems, and authority. And that is why the conspiracies were launched against you, not because you were weak, but because you are destined to govern, to lead, to restore. Every attack was evidence of the threat you pose to the corrupted powers of this age. What you must understand, Chosen One, is that the attempts to sabotage you were never random. They were coordinated plots that came from forces both spiritual and political. The invisible realm and the visible realm always move together, and those who walk in the light of God become targets of those who profit from darkness. Just as Joseph was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, and falsely accused, yet rose to sit on the throne of Egypt, so too have you been pushed down, only to be strategically positioned for leadership. That is why this moment is critical. The conspiracy that was designed to bury you has backfired, and it is now the very stage where your authority is being revealed. They planned your downfall, but what they never anticipated is that their own schemes would expose their weakness and confirm your legitimacy. And before we go further, let me invite you to take a step of engagement right now, because this is not just a video. It is a prophetic encounter. If this word is already resonating in your spirit, pause for a second and comment below with the phrase, "I rise while they fall." Leave your like as a declaration of agreement. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, do so now. Because here you are not just listening to content, you are receiving divine strategy. Stay connected, because the revelations that follow will not only strengthen your spirit, but also prepare your mind for the season of authority you are about to walk into. What is coming is not theory. It is the unveiling of why every conspiracy backfired and why now is the time for your rise. There is a mystery behind every attempt to silence you, Chosen One. You may have thought that the betrayals, the rejections, and the accusations were random setbacks, but in truth, they were calculated strategies from forces that understood something you did not fully grasp at the time. Your rising would shake foundations. They knew that if your voice remained unbroken, your influence would multiply, and if your integrity stayed intact, entire systems would begin to crumble under the weight of truth. That is why your enemies moved in shadows, spreading whispers, planting doubts, orchestrating resistance in boardrooms, pulpits, and political circles. Yet what they failed to see is that God always uses hidden opposition as the very tool of preparation. Their schemes were seeds of your elevation, and the very traps they built have now become their downfall. Understand this: every conspiracy carries within it a divine paradox. Those who plotted against you thought they were orchestrating your end, but what they truly did was build the platform for your unveiling. Just as Daniel's enemies sought to trap him by manipulating political decrees, they ended up creating the very scenario where his faith was displayed before kings. In the same way, the sabotage you endured has made your story undeniable. The more they resisted you, the more they confirmed that you are a threat to their false authority. Spiritually, this reveals God's hand. Politically, it shows the fragility of corrupted systems that fear a single righteous leader more than armies. They could not stop your assignment, because divine authority cannot be legislated away, nor can it be silenced by false narratives. You are not called merely to survive conspiracies, but to rise from them with greater authority. Every time they struck at your character, it forged resilience in your soul. Every time they closed a door, God opened another one larger and more significant. That pattern is not coincidence. It is divine economy. What the enemy means for evil, God recycles for good, transforming losses into platforms of influence. The enemy believes in subtraction, but God operates in multiplication. And the more they tried to subtract you from the equation, the greater your multiplication became. Look back at your life. The most painful betrayals became the turning points of your destiny. The darkest nights of isolation became the very moments you heard God's voice most clearly. This is why your story carries weight. This is why you are rising now. But let me ask you, chosen one, haven't you noticed that the weight of your battles has always been heavier than those around you? This is because you were never meant to live an ordinary life. You were never meant to blend into systems designed to enslave. You were chosen to disrupt them. Think of Joseph again. While his brothers farmed in obscurity, Joseph was being trained in dungeons, palaces, and foreign lands. His preparation was painful but strategic, and in the end, he became the one positioned to govern nations. Likewise, your preparation came in the form of conspiracies, betrayals, and sabotage. Pain was the language of your training, and though it felt unbearable, it has left you ready to govern when others collapse. What they tried to use to disqualify you has only proven your readiness to lead. You see, the connection between the spiritual and the political is inseparable. When the spiritual atmosphere shifts, political systems tremble. When heaven appoints a leader, earthly powers resist. That is why the attacks you faced were not simply personal. They were governmental. Your rising threatens not only individuals, but structures, economies, and false dominions that feed on injustice. The same way Pharaoh feared the growth of the Hebrews and ordered their oppression, your enemies feared your potential and tried to contain you. Yet, as with Israel in Egypt, the more pressure applied, the more multiplication occurred. Spiritually, oppression accelerates destiny. Politically, persecution exposes the cracks in corrupt regimes. This is why, despite all efforts, you are still here, rising. There is a lesson hidden in the collapse of corrupted powers. They always overreach. They always press too hard, too far, until their own weight brings them down. Think of Nebuchadnezzar in the book of Daniel, who exalted himself and demanded worship, only to be humbled and driven into the wilderness until he acknowledged the Most High as ruler of nations. That same principle operates today. Those who exalt themselves above God and conspire against His chosen inevitably collapse under their pride. The backfire is not accidental, it is inevitable. Every conspiracy you survived has now become a testimony that you cannot be stopped, not because of your own strength, but because divine order cannot be reversed. The throne God has prepared for you stands firm while the empires of men crumble. And this is where your story begins to shift, chosen one. The weight of conspiracies has not crushed you. It has positioned you. The systems that tried to silence you have revealed their weakness. The very people who doubted you are now witnesses of your resilience. Spiritually, this is the unveiling of destiny. Politically, it is the transition of power. Your enemies underestimated one thing, that every hidden attempt against you would one day be broadcast as evidence of your legitimacy. They tried to erase your name, but in doing so, they carved it into history. They tried to bury you in obscurity, but in doing so, They planted you in fertile ground. Now the world is about to see the fruit of your endurance, and no conspiracy can undo what God has ordained. Have you noticed that isolation has always been your silent companion? The conspiracies against you were not only attacks on your name or influence. They were also calculated moves to cut you off from alliances, support, and networks that could have strengthened you. They wanted you isolated, believing that if they could make you walk alone, they could break you. But what they did not realize is that isolation was your training ground. In the silence where they thought you would suffocate, you found clarity. In the rejection where they thought you would despair, you found resilience. Spiritually, isolation is not abandonment, but consecration. Politically, it becomes the birth of independence, because the leader who has learned to stand alone cannot be manipulated by corrupted systems or controlled by bribes. Every attack against you had one hidden goal: to paralyze your voice. They knew that if your voice remained unshaken, you would influence not only people, but generations. That is why lies were whispered, accusations were spread, and suspicions were planted. They hoped to mute your authority, to distort your image so that when you spoke, your words would lose weight. But here is the truth. No human conspiracy can silence a voice established by heaven. Look at the prophets of old. Jeremiah was beaten and imprisoned, yet his words still pierced kings. Amos was rejected by priests, yet his prophecy outlived them all. When heaven endorses your voice, earthly powers can only amplify its impact. Politically, this principle explains why righteous leaders rise in the ashes of defamation, because truth always outlasts slander. The deeper root of every conspiracy against you is envy. Those who see your light cannot ignore it, even if they pretend to. Your influence exposes their lack of legitimacy, and that is unbearable to them. Remember, Cain did not kill Abel because Abel harmed him, but because Abel's offering revealed Cain's emptiness. Likewise, those who attacked you were not moved by justice, but by insecurity. Spiritually, envy is the poison that fuels rebellion against God's order. Politically, envy is the spark that drives coups, betrayals, and systemic corruption. They feared what your presence revealed about their weakness, and instead of repenting, they conspired to eliminate you. But envy cannot cancel destiny. It only exposes the counterfeit. And the more they envied, the clearer your divine legitimacy became. You must realize that the systems which fought you understood something crucial. Your integrity is more dangerous than their corruption. A single leader who refuses to bow to lies becomes a mirror that reflects the decay of the entire structure. This is why Daniel was targeted. His refusal to compromise revealed the hypocrisy of those in power. And when Daniel's enemies set a trap with the king's decree, their manipulation only opened the stage for his vindication. In the same way, every scheme against you has become a revelation of your authenticity. Spiritually, integrity is the shield that cannot be pierced. Politically, integrity is the force that topples regimes, because people will always hunger for leaders who embody truth rather than deception. What you carry cannot be hidden. This is the real reason behind the hostility. Systems rooted in corruption know that your very existence is a prophetic contradiction to their order. Your life is like a living indictment against the structures of deception. Spiritually, your destiny is to be light that exposes darkness. Politically, your role is to embody governance rooted in justice. That is why attacks against you always seem disproportionate, because they are not fighting your present, they are fighting your future. They are not threatened by who you are today, but by what you are about to become. That is why every attempt to sabotage you has been so intense. Yet, in every instance, what was meant to extinguish you only fueled your flame. Do not forget the biblical pattern. Daniel was conspired against not because he was weak, but because he was too strong in righteousness. His enemies twisted laws, manipulated kings, and manufactured crises to trap him. Yet their conspiracy backfired, and the lion's den that was supposed to be his grave became the stage of his vindication. Spiritually, this shows us that conspiracies always accelerate the unveiling of God's chosen. Politically, it shows that manipulation is always exposed by time. What happened to Daniel is happening to you in another form. The stage of your testing is about to become the platform of your unveiling, and those who conspired against you will be the ones who fall into the very judgment they designed for you. And here is the undeniable truth. Every political system, every corrupt leader, every network of deception knows deep down that they cannot survive once truth rises. That is why the weight of their attacks against you has been so heavy. They feared your voice because they sensed your assignment. They feared your endurance because they knew it meant they could not outlast you. Spiritually, this is the collision of light and darkness. Politically, it is the moment where illegitimate powers begin to tremble because one righteous ruler carries more weight than an army of deceivers. This is why you have felt the pressure increase, because you are approaching the moment where their collapse will mark your rise. Chosen one, the story of Daniel in the lion's den is not only a historical event, but a prophetic template for your journey. The leaders of Babylon plotted his downfall because his faith exposed their corruption, and they thought political manipulation would destroy him. Yet the very decree they crafted became the stage of his vindication. Spiritually, this shows that every law, system, or weapon formed against the righteous cannot prosper when God's hand is on them. Politically, it reveals that every corrupt network eventually collapses under its own deceit. The same is happening in your life. The schemes designed to bury you have only amplified your legitimacy. Every false accusation has become a stage where your resilience shines brighter, and those who dug pits for you are now falling into them themselves. But let us be clear, betrayal is part of your destiny's pathway. You cannot ascend without walking through the valley of treachery. Even Jesus, the Son of God, was not exempt from betrayal. Judas, a close companion, sold him for silver, and the religious leaders conspired to silence him. Yet what seemed like defeat was the very road to the cross, and the cross became the gateway to resurrection. Spiritually, this means betrayal is never the end. It is the setup for transformation. Politically, betrayal has always been the trigger of transitions in power. History proves that no empire falls without internal betrayal exposing its weakness. You are walking the same pattern. Those who betrayed you have unintentionally accelerated your rise. Understand this. The weight of betrayal is not meant to break you, but to prove you. The chosen are not identified by comfort, but by the scars of endurance. When allies turn into adversaries, it is painful, but it reveals something profound. You were never meant to depend on their loyalty. Your strength was always designed to come from divine alignment, not human applause. Spiritually, this equips you to hear God's voice above the noise. Politically, it ensures that when you rise into leadership, you will not govern out of fear of man or need for approval, but from integrity that cannot be bought. Every betrayal has stripped you from illusions, leaving you unshakable, untouchable, and prepared for the weight of true governance. Chosen one, retaliation is the trap of the enemy. When conspiracies surround you, The temptation is to fight fire with fire, to respond to lies with lies, and to strike back with the same weapons used against you. But you must not. The path of legitimacy requires restraint. Spiritually, vengeance belongs to God, not to man. Politically, those who retaliate in corruption become indistinguishable from the very powers they were called to replace. That is why your silence in moments of injustice was not weakness. It was strategy. By refusing to retaliate, you preserved your integrity and allowed time to expose your enemies. Their downfall was inevitable, not because you fought them, but because their schemes carried the seeds of their own destruction. Every chosen leader throughout history has faced this same temptation. Moses was slandered, David was hunted, Nehemiah was mocked, yet none of them rose by retaliation. They rose because the weight of God's assignment on them was greater than the accusations against them. Your story is no different. Spiritually, your restraint proves that you are governed by heaven's order. Politically, your refusal to play by corrupted rules makes you a unique kind of leader, one who cannot be compromised or manipulated. This is why you remain a threat, because you operate on a higher law, one that cannot be bribed, silenced, or bought. And that is why every attempt to sabotage you has failed, because you refuse to fight in their arena. The pressure is intensifying because your presence threatens their survival. Chosen one, you need to recognize this truth. Systems crumble when confronted with incorruptible integrity. Your enemies sense this and panic, which is why their attacks have become increasingly desperate. Spiritually, this is the clash between the kingdom of light and the dominion of darkness. Politically, it is the exposure of regimes and leaders who have built their authority on deception. They know they cannot win, but they hope to delay your rise by exhausting you. Do not mistake the intensity of attacks as a sign of weakness in yourself. It is proof of the weight of your calling and the fragility of their foundations. They tremble because you stand firm. And here lies the inevitable conclusion. The confrontation is unavoidable. The schemes against you have built too much momentum to quietly fade away. Spiritually, this is the season where God reveals who is truly anointed to govern. Politically, it is the moment of transition when illegitimate powers collapse under the weight of truth. Do not fear the escalation, for escalation is the sign that exposure is near. The storm you feel pressing in is not your destruction. It is their unraveling. This confrontation will not end with your fall, but with theirs. And when the dust settles, you will stand, not as a survivor, but as the rightful authority prepared to govern with wisdom and justice. Chosen one, understand that without betrayal, there is no legitimacy of authority. Every true leader is validated through the test of disloyalty, because it is only when those closest to you turn against you that the authenticity of your mission is revealed. Spiritually, betrayal is the fire that burns away false attachments, leaving only what is pure. Politically, betrayal is the fracture that exposes which alliances were never built on truth, but on convenience. Consider David, pursued by Saul, abandoned by his own people, and even rejected by his men at Ziklag, yet those betrayals positioned him to be king over Israel. Likewise, every betrayal you endured was a seal that your throne is not man-made, but divinely assigned. You rise not because of their loyalty, but because of God's covenant over your life. And this is why retaliation must never define you. The temptation to strike back, to expose those who slandered you, to dismantle those who tried to crush you, has been real. You felt the fire in your bones to speak, to defend, to fight. But the Spirit restrained you, reminding you that the anointing you carry cannot be contaminated with vengeance. Spiritually, vengeance belongs to the Lord, as written in Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 35, and it is His hand that will repay. Politically, retaliation reduces leaders to the level of their enemies, stripping them of the moral authority to govern. By choosing restraint, you preserved your legitimacy, proving that your assignment cannot be manipulated by human schemes. That restraint is not weakness, it is mastery. Look around, and you will see the consequence of restraint. Those who once mocked your silence now watch as the very structures they trusted are collapsing. Your refusal to retaliate has allowed truth to run its full course, and the results are undeniable. Spiritually, silence in the hands of the chosen is a weapon more powerful than swords. Politically, silence becomes the strategy that unmasks the lies of adversaries, because falsehood eventually collapses without opposition. You may have been accused of being passive, but heaven knows you were strategic. By holding your peace, you gave room for the conspiracies to expose themselves. And now, what once seemed like your defeat has become the evidence of their corruption. Do not underestimate the pressure of this season, chosen one. You have been squeezed on every side, targeted with relentless schemes, and burdened with accusations that were meant to crush your spirit. But this is not a sign of weakness. It is confirmation of your calling. Spiritually, the greater the pressure, the greater the oil that flows from the anointed. Politically, pressure exposes the durability of a leader. When others collapse under stress, the chosen endure, and that endurance becomes their qualification to govern. This is why your enemies tremble even when they appear confident. They sense that the very pressure they placed on you is producing a capacity in you that they cannot match. What was meant to break you is actually enlarging you. Consider the pattern of history. Every empire that resisted righteousness eventually fell by its own weight. Egypt, Babylon, Rome, all of them conspired against the chosen of God, and all of them collapsed while the chosen endured. Spiritually, this shows that God always preserves His covenant people, no matter how powerful the opposition appears. Politically, it demonstrates that illegitimate systems always carry within them the seeds of their destruction. Look at the nations today. Corruption, deception, manipulation, all trembling at the rise of one righteous leader. You are part of this pattern. The conspiracies against you are simply signs that the collapse of corrupted structures is near, and your positioning as a restorer is already being written into history. Chosen one, you are no longer fighting to survive. You are ascending into divine authority. Spiritually, this is the moment when the rejected cornerstone becomes essential, as prophesied in Scripture. Politically, the collapse of false rulers marks the unveiling of the rightful leader. You. Your enemies, who once mocked and conspired, now tremble as their lies collapse under the weight of truth. Each betrayal was a stepping stone. Every dagger has become a rung on the ladder of your destiny. Doors closed by man only redirected you to gates opened by God. You are not merely withstanding conspiracies. You are rising because of them. The shift is real, and enthronement has begun. Escalation signals breakthrough. What once felt like relentless warfare is now the prelude to your recognition. Spiritually, this is the hour when mantles are revealed. Politically, the collapse of illegitimate rule clears space for true governance. You have been tested in fire and proven incorruptible. Your scars now authenticate your authority. Endurance through constant pressure is no accident. It's the mark of divine election. Every burden, every silence, every night you nearly gave up, all forged your resilience. You are not the product of applause, but of persistence. The storm isn't your downfall. It's the undoing of your enemies and the unveiling of your crown. Every plot against you backfired, not just failing, but fortifying you. Like Joseph, what was meant to bury you became the path to your palace. Spiritually, betrayal is never wasted. It validates your calling. Politically, failed schemes reveal the strength of hidden leaders. And now, the storm's climax reveals what was concealed. Your time has come. Exposure always follows intensity. God allowed the pressure so corruption would surface and your authority would shine. From Pharaoh to Rome, overreach has always preceded collapse. Likewise, your enemies overplayed their hand. Their downfall isn't your revenge. It's your release into rulership. This is your moment to lead. Chosen one, hear this clearly. You are not simply enduring sabotage. You are ascending through it. The conspiracy was never about destroying you. It was about exposing them. Every whisper, every trap, every false accusation has revealed more about your enemies than about you. Spiritually, this is the law of divine reversal, where the snare set for the righteous becomes the grave of the wicked. Politically, it is the principle of history that no regime survives once its corruption is unveiled before the people. You do not even have to fight. Their collapse has already begun. The louder they tried to bury you, the clearer their weakness became. And now, the world sees not only your endurance, but their downfall. Remember this truth. Authority is not seized by violence, but conferred through endurance and legitimacy. The throne of Saul collapsed not because David fought him, but because Saul disqualified himself through disobedience. Spiritually, disobedience always strips authority. Politically, incompetence and corruption always unravel regimes. David did not need to kill Saul to become king. Saul's own rebellion dethroned him. Likewise, you do not need to destroy your enemies. Their conspiracies are dismantling them from within. Your responsibility is simply to remain faithful, steady, and ready to govern when the mantle shifts. And that shift is already happening. The throne is being vacated and you are being positioned. This is the season of divine transition, and it cannot be reversed. Spiritually, it is the moment when God reveals who carries his authority. Politically, it is the moment when illegitimate rulers collapse under the weight of their lies. You are entering the stage of exposure and vindication, where everything that was whispered in darkness will be shouted on rooftops. The conspiracies are no longer hidden strategies. They have become public spectacles of corruption. And in their collapse, your legitimacy is undeniable. The same people who once doubted you will now acknowledge your authority, not because of your arguments, but because the evidence is irrefutable. Their fall has confirmed your rise, and nothing can stop what has already been decreed. Chosen one, take this revelation into your spirit. The storm you have been facing is not against you. It is for you. Heaven orchestrated every detail to strip away illusions, expose pretenders, and establish your name as a standard of integrity. Spiritually, storms do not come to destroy the chosen. They come to reveal them. Politically, storms dismantle the fragile structures of false authority so that the true ruler can emerge. That is why, instead of fearing the intensity of this season, you must embrace it. The storm has revealed what could never be seen in calm waters, that you are the one equipped to navigate chaos. This is your coronation disguised as conflict, your enthronement wrapped in warfare. Their conspiracy backfired because it only confirmed what heaven already decreed. You rise, and they fall. The time has come to recognize the hidden design behind your struggles. What once looked like a chaotic sequence of betrayals, closed doors, and false accusations was in truth a divine construction that positioned you for governance. Every fall you endured became a foundation stone beneath your feet. Every loss became a resource disguised as pain, and every slander became a testimony that you were never ordinary. Spiritually, this is the mystery Joseph revealed when he declared to his brothers in Genesis chapter 50 verse 20 that what they meant for evil, God used for good. Politically, it shows that leadership forged in resistance becomes unshakable. The storms you survived are the credentials of your authority, and those who tried to write your end unknowingly wrote the first chapter of your reign. Their conspiracy backfired, and it backfired spectacularly. For you are rising in the very arena where they sought to bury you. Do not forget that reputation is often shaped in the shadows before it is honored in the light. When your enemies attempted to destroy your name, they believed that discrediting you would silence you forever. Yet their attempts did not weaken your voice, they amplified it. Spiritually, the anointed cannot be erased, because their legitimacy flows from God Himself, not from human approval. Politically, every defamation attempt becomes fuel for exposure, because once lies are repeated too often, they collapse under their own inconsistency. Look at history. The names of those who conspired vanish with time, but the names of those they tried to silence echo for generations. So it is with you. Their false narratives have already disintegrated, and your story has become a testimony of endurance, making you the one people now look to for truth. The most profound paradox is this: their hatred against you became the loudest advertisement for your mission. Those who wanted to discredit you ended up drawing attention to you. Spiritually, this mirrors the cross of Christ. The rulers of the time believed they had ended His influence, but His crucifixion became the foundation of the faith that now governs nations. Politically, it mirrors every moment in history, where persecuted leaders outlived the empires that sought to silence them. Consider Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Mandela, even biblical prophets. Their imprisonments and trials became the very platforms that authenticated their voices. So too with you, chosen one. The attacks became your unveiling. What was meant to hide you only magnified you, and what was designed to weaken you made your destiny undeniable. The lions set against you have already been silenced. Spiritually, the mouths of lions represent the devouring power of slander, manipulation, and destructive rumors. Yet just as God shut the mouths of lions in Daniel's day, He has silenced the destructive power of your adversaries. Politically, this silence translates into the loss of credibility for those who conspired. Their voices are no longer trusted, their influence collapses, and their strategies implode. The credibility they tried to strip from you has now abandoned them. This is the justice of divine reversal. They built gallows for you as Haman did for Mordecai, but they now swing upon them. This is why you stand unbroken, because divine authority always outlasts false decrees. Their silence is your vindication, and their fall is your ascension. Do not miss the timing of this revelation. Spiritually, you are stepping into the season of unveiling, when hidden authority becomes visible to all. Politically, it is the transition moment when illegitimate powers lose their grip, and the chosen rise to take their place. Every conspiracy, every scheme, every backroom deal meant to undermine you has collapsed under its own weight. And now, the world sees the cracks in their walls, while they recognize the unshaken stability in you. The backfire was not partial, it was total. Their strategies exposed their corruption, while your endurance confirmed your integrity. The shift is happening even now, and the authority you carry is becoming undeniable. What was once resisted is now being revealed, and the more they fall, the higher you are lifted. Understand that this point of revelation is also the point of transition. Spiritually, when the mantle shifts, it cannot be taken back. Politically, when corrupted rulers lose legitimacy, the people no longer follow them, and power naturally transfers to the one who embodies truth. That is you. The people who once doubted you will now look to you for direction, not because you demanded it, but because the collapse of their former trust leaves you as the only viable source of leadership. Your throne is not built by force, but by recognition, and recognition is coming faster than you imagined. The conspiracy they thought would end you has created the vacuum that only you can fill. You are rising not by manipulation, but by divine ordination. The exposure of your enemies is not only about their downfall, but about your validation. Spiritually, vindication is always public, because the God who sees in secret rewards openly. Politically, exposure is the reset of leadership, when hidden truths are revealed and the stage is cleared for legitimate rulers. Look carefully. Everything they accused you of has now been proven false, while everything they tried to hide about themselves is being broadcast. Their fall has become the loudspeaker of your legitimacy. This is why you no longer have to explain yourself. The evidence speaks louder than words. The backfire is visible to all, and the stage is set for your rise. Their collapse is no longer speculation. It is prophecy fulfilled. Chosen one, this is your moment of divine unveiling. What once was hidden now stands in plain sight. Spiritually, every whisper spoken in secret has become public testimony, fulfilling Luke 12:3. Politically, the false faces of power are falling away, and your legitimacy is rising through the ruins of their deception. Every scheme formed to destroy you has, in fact, become the scaffold of your elevation. You are not merely surviving attacks. You are standing on the evidence of God's faithfulness. What was meant to silence you has now broadcast your name. Their collapse is no longer speculation. It's confirmation. You were never just resisting opposition. You were being prepared to inherit visibility and rule with integrity. Every failed conspiracy was a stage for your unveiling. Spiritually, your endurance under attack was covered by divine protection. Politically, their obsession with your fall only magnified your strength. Like Saul unknowingly paving the way for David, your enemies authored your coronation without realizing it. Their exposure has become your announcement. Now, you stand as the one whose scars prove survival and whose presence demands authority. The throne wasn't seized by ambition, it was earned through resilience. When others fell, you remained. This pattern confirms the hand of God. Joseph after the pit, Daniel after the den, David after the desert. The same vindication is now unfolding in you. Now, chosen one, the hour is not for retreat, but for reign. Spiritually, the light within you must no longer be hidden. Politically, your voice must fill the vacuum left by collapsing systems. This is more than a moment. It's a mantle. You are called not to boast in your vindication, but to build with it. Nations await clarity, justice, and transformation, and you are the vessel. This is the divine order. Their collapse makes space for your governance. Do not fear the weight of responsibility. It was always yours. Your scars are not a disqualification, but the seal of your readiness. Lead now, for this is your assignment and the world is watching. Chosen one, Understand that every throne built without justice is destined to fall, for the entire universe aligns with divine order. Spiritually, God's throne stands on righteousness and justice, and no system that abandons these foundations can endure. Politically, history proves this. Empires rooted in deception always collapse, regardless of their strength. Your enemies did not fall merely because they opposed you, but because their structures were unsustainable. In contrast, your rise is not fueled by ambition or force, but by alignment with eternal principles. The justice you uphold sustains your authority, and this is why your throne cannot be shaken. You were preserved not to escape the shaking, but to lead through it with a vision anchored in heaven. The collapse around you is not chaos. It's a divine reset. Spiritually, the shaking is fulfilling Hebrews 12:27, removing what can be shaken, so only the unshakable remains. Politically, this is the unraveling of systems corrupted beyond repair. But where others see collapse, you see construction. This is your time to rise, to rebuild what was lost. You were not meant to survive the conspiracies, but to be proven by them. Every scheme that backfired refined your purpose and confirmed your place in this moment. Now, you are not just surviving, you are governing. Your scars have become credentials, and your endurance, the foundation of a new order. You are the vessel through which restoration enters a broken world. This battle was never just about you. It was about what you carry. Spiritually, you embody divine order. Politically, you represent incorruptible governance. That's why you became a target. Their fear of you was the fear of being replaced by truth. Now that their lies have collapsed, your unveiling is unstoppable. You rise not for vengeance, but to restore systems ruined by deception. Isaiah 58:12 calls you a restorer of the breach, and that is exactly who you are. Your mission now goes beyond personal vindication. It is a call to heal nations, rebuild cultures, and establish justice that cannot be bought. This rise is not for ease, it is for impact. You were not preserved for comfort, you were preserved for responsibility. Chosen one, your authority is grounded in a vision not born of personal ambition, but forged in the fires of divine testing. You were not raised to copy flawed models of leadership, but to establish a higher order shaped by heaven's justice. Spiritually, you carry instruction embedded deep in your spirit. Politically, your vision is the only stable blueprint in a crumbling world. This is why the collapse of corrupt systems does not alarm you. It affirms your assignment. Every attempt to sabotage your rise only clarified your purpose and refined your discernment. You have not been disqualified by adversity. You have been distinguished by it. You are not entering leadership by chance, but by decree, carrying a vision so pure it exposes illegitimacy simply by existing. This is the hour for manifestation, where all creation groans for righteous leadership to emerge. You were preserved not just for personal restoration, but for global transformation. The spotlight has shifted to you, not through manipulation, but through providence. Spiritually, you embody endurance, a living contradiction to every lie spoken against you. Politically, you are the one the nations have been aching for, incorruptible, unwavering, and unshaken. Your rise is not noise, it is necessity. Every false alliance that fell apart was divine protection. Every betrayal that scarred you was divine preparation. You do not rise for status, but for stewardship. You now carry not just authority, but responsibility to rebuild what was lost and restore what was broken through truth, order, and justice. Your rise is irreversible because your legitimacy is not manufactured, but eternal. Where others built their influence through lies and deception, yours was tested in fire and confirmed through collapse. You are the fulfillment of prophecies long ignored, the embodiment of Isaiah 61:4, called to restore ruins and rebuild generations. You are not just a survivor. You are a reformer, a legislator, a vessel of heaven's government. The mantle you carry demands humility, integrity, and boldness, for your scars now qualify you to lead. You were not forgotten. You were hidden until the time was right. And now, with the old order falling and the world crying out for truth, your voice, your governance, and your endurance are what history has been waiting for. You are rising because no one else was anointed for this throne but you. Chosen one, your journey has been both prophetic and practical. You were not just called to survive storms, but to govern after them. Spiritually, you are light amid chaos. Politically, you are the standard of righteousness rising as corrupt systems fall. The attacks against you were never about you alone. They were attempts to stop what heaven ordained through you. But every attempt failed. And now you rise not with pride, but with divine purpose. You are not here to rule for self-glory, but to serve as heaven's extension on earth. Your authority is the fruit of your endurance. This season is not merely your promotion. It is heaven's strategy fulfilled through your obedience. Understand this. Nothing was wasted. Every wound prepared you, every delay refined you, every battle positioned you. Now, prophecies long hidden are unfolding before the eyes of nations. This is not coincidence. It is coronation. You are being recognized not because you demanded it, but because God decreed it. Your enemies have fallen by their own design, but you stand as the evidence of divine timing. This is your moment to govern, to lead with justice, to restore what corruption destroyed. No longer will you merely survive. You will legislate righteousness, influence generations, and model what it means to rule under heaven's command. The age of endurance ends. The age of divine governance begins. Before you leave, let this word be sealed with faith. Declare with boldness, I rise while they fall. Let the world know you are not shrinking back. You are stepping into destiny. Share the message, subscribe, partner with the mission if led, and continue walking this prophetic journey. You are not rising alone. Nations rise with you. Systems, communities, and families are waiting on your obedience. Heaven's government is your backing, and the scepter has already been placed in your hand. This is not a suggestion. It is divine confirmation. Walk boldly, speak with authority, and govern with purity. You rise not by opinion, but by decree, and no one can reverse what God has ordained.